The most successful people I've ever met share one surprising habit. It's not what they read. It's not who they know. It's not even how hard they work. It's their ability to be completely alone and thrive in that solitude. While others panic at the first moment of silence, these rare individuals have discovered a secret. Your greatest power lies in the moments when it's just you facing yourself. Look around and you'll see a world running from silence, phones constantly buzzing, TVs playing in empty rooms, people scheduling every minute as if white space in a calendar were some kind of failure. This is what I've learned after decades of studying success. The quality of your life will never exceed the quality of your relationship with yourself. And that relationship, it can only be built in solitude. I remember years ago, I was struggling in business, everything was going wrong. My partners had different ideas, customers weren't buying, the economy was tough. Everyone had advice for me, do this, try that. The noise was overwhelming. Then one weekend, my schedule cleared unexpectedly. Everyone canceled, no meetings, no calls, just me alone with my thoughts. I felt uncomfortable at first, restless, but then something happened. In that quiet space, I found clarity. I took out a yellow pad and started writing. By Sunday night, I had a complete plan for turning everything around. That plan worked better than anything anyone had suggested to me. Why? Because in that solitude, I connected with my own wisdom, my own understanding of the business. Being alone gave me power that committee thinking never could. Now, let me be clear about something. There's a big difference between being lonely and being alone. Loneliness is a painful feeling of disconnection, isolation. It drains your energy. But solitude, purposeful time alone. It's the difference between being in prison and being on a retreat. Same physical circumstance, completely different experience. Lonely people feel abandoned. People who harness solitude feel liberated. Lonely people are waiting for someone to rescue them. People who understand solitude are busy rescuing themselves. See the difference? Many great achievements throughout history came from people who knew how to be alone. Einstein developed his theory of relativity not in crowded laboratories, but during solitary walks. Lincoln wrote the Gettysburg Address alone. Mother Teresa said her best ideas for helping others came during her private prayer time. Your greatest contributions will likely come not from your busiest moments, but from your quietest ones. The ability to be alone shows tremendous self-security. Most people can't stand their own company because they haven't developed their inner life. They need constant external validation, constant distraction. But when you're comfortable being alone, you demonstrate that you're complete in yourself. That's attractive. That's powerful. That's rare. I once met a successful CEO who told me his secret. Every morning, he arrived at his office 1 hour before anyone else. That quiet hour, he said, is worth more than the other 8 combined. He used that time to think, to plan, to center himself, while his competitors were reacting all day. He was directing. Why? Because he had the courage to be alone with his thoughts. Here's something fascinating. Studies show that people will actually give themselves electric shocks rather than sit quietly alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. That's how uncomfortable most folks are with solitude. But that discomfort is exactly where growth happens. That's where the power is. When you're alone, there's no one to impress. No masks needed. You can be completely honest with yourself. You know, I often ask people in my seminars, when was the last time you were completely honest with yourself? The looks I get, because most people are so busy trying to look good to others that they never develop the habit of looking truthfully at themselves. Solitude strips away pretense. It forces you to confront who you really are, what you really want, what truly matters to you. Not what society says should matter. Not what your parents or friends or colleagues think should matter. What actually matters to you? That self-knowledge is priceless. It's the foundation of authentic success. I knew a woman once who built a multi-million-dollar business. She told me her breakthrough came during a weekend retreat she took by herself. For years, she said, I was building the business everyone expected me to build. During those 2 days alone, I realized I was on the wrong path. I came back and completely changed direction. Within a year, Her business tripled. The power of being alone gave her the clarity she needed. Think about the times when you've had your best ideas. Was it in a crowded meeting, or was it in the shower, on a quiet walk, during a long drive? There's a reason for that. Your mind needs space to make connections. It needs quiet to hear your own wisdom. Constant noise and input drown out your most creative thoughts. Now let me tell you something else about the power of being alone. It builds self-reliance. And self-reliance is essential for success in anything. When you spend time alone, you learn to solve your own problems. You develop confidence in your abilities. You become resourceful. Children who never learn to play alone often struggle as adults. They don't develop inner resources. They're always dependent on others for their happiness, their direction, their sense of worth. But those who learn to enjoy their own company, they develop an independence that serves them their entire lives. I've coached thousands of people over the years, and I can tell you this with certain. Those who can't stand to be alone are the most likely to end up in bad relationships, dead-end jobs, or making poor financial decisions. Why? Because they'll accept almost anything to avoid facing themselves. The power to be selective in life comes from being comfortable with solitude. You know what's interesting? The most desperate negotiators are the ones who can't walk away. In business, in relationships, in any situation, if you can't be alone, you'll accept bad deals. But when you're comfortable with solitude, you negotiate from strength. You can say no. You can wait for the right opportunity. That's power. I remember talking with a friend who was dating someone who clearly wasn't right for her. I asked why she stayed. Her answer was revealing. I hate being alone on weekends. Think about that. She was making one of life's most important decisions based on her discomfort with solitude. How many people do this? They choose lifelong partners because they're afraid of Friday nights alone. That's giving away extraordinary power. Let me share something with you about creativity and original thinking. They simply cannot flourish without solitude. When you're constantly consuming other people's ideas, on social media, television, in conversation, you're not developing your own. Your thinking becomes derivative, reactive, rather than creative. The greatest innovators protect their alone time fiercely. Bill Gates takes think weeks twice a year, 7 days alone in a cabin just to read and think. Warren Buffett has said that he spent about 8 of his career reading and thinking alone. J.K. Rowling conceived Harry Potter during a long train ride alone with her thoughts. Steve Jobs was known for his long solitary walks. These people changed the world not in spite of their time alone, but because of it. When you're constantly surrounded by others, you're subtly influenced by their thinking. It's human nature. We conform without even realizing it. But breakthroughs, by definition, can't come from conformity. They come from seeing what others don't see. And that kind of vision rarely develops in a crowd. There's a term psychologists use, groupthink. It's the tendency for groups to reach consensus without critical thinking. We see it in committees, in boardrooms, even in families. Everyone nods along. No one wants to rock the boat. But the antidote to groupthink is thinking alone, forming your own conclusions before being influenced by others. I tell business owners this all the time. If you want better meetings, ask people to think about the problem alone before coming together. You'll get better ideas, more honest opinions. Why? Because they've had the chance to connect with their own wisdom first. Now, making good decisions is critical to success in any area of life. And there's something powerful about making decisions in solitude. When you decide something alone, you take full ownership. There's no one else to blame if things go wrong. That accountability leads to more careful, thoughtful decisions. Have you noticed how people often make worse decisions in groups? There's social pressure, there's posturing, there's the diffusion of responsibility. Well, everyone agreed, so it's not my fault. But when you decide alone, you bring your full attention and responsibility to the choice. I know many successful people who never make important decisions in meetings. They listen, they gather information, but they go away and decide alone. They know that in solitude, they can hear their intuition more clearly. They can think through consequences more thoroughly. They're not swayed by the loudest voice or the most confident presenter. This reminds me of a story about Abraham Lincoln. During the Civil War, his cabinet once took a vote on an important matter. Every single cabinet member voted one way. Lincoln voted the opposite way. When asked why, he simply said 7 nays and 1 aye. The ayes have it. He had the courage to stand alone in his conviction. That's leadership. That's power. You know, I've noticed something interesting over the years. The people most comfortable with solitude are often the most comfortable in genuine community, too. There's no desperation in their connections with others. They come together by choice, not need. Their relationships have a different quality, more authentic, more equal, more enjoyable for everyone. Think about the people you most enjoy being around. Aren't they the ones who are complete in themselves, who don't need you to fill some emotional hole in their lives, who bring their whole independent self to the relationship? That kind of healthy interdependence only comes from people who've mastered being alone. Now let's talk about preparing for success through solitary discipline. Most achievement requires practice, study, preparation. And much of that work must be done alone. No one can do your push-ups for you. No one can read your books for you. No one can write your business plan for you. The foundation of success is built in private, brick by brick. I remember asking a champion swimmer about her training. She told me about getting up at 4:30 every morning, driving to the pool in the dark and swimming laps for 2 hours before school. The hardest part, she said, wasn't the physical training. It was being alone with my thoughts for those 2 hours every day. Many swimmers quit because they can't handle the mental solitude, not because they can't handle the physical work. This is true in every field. Musicians practice alone for years before performing on stage. Writers face the blank page alone day after day. Entrepreneurs work through problems alone long before they have a team. The willingness to put in those solitary hours separates the successful from the wishful thinkers. I've had people tell me, Jim, I'd write a book too if I had the time. But when I ask how they spend their evenings, it's usually watching TV or scrolling through social media. The time is there. What's missing is the willingness to be alone with their thoughts, to engage in deep work without distraction. That's the real challenge. There's something else important about solitary discipline. It builds confidence like nothing else. When you prove to yourself privately that you can do difficult things, you develop unshakable self-belief. You know what you're capable of because you've seen it firsthand with no audience, no recognition. That's the kind of confidence that can't be taken away by criticism or setbacks. I worked with a man who completely transformed his health, lost 100 pounds, reversed his diabetes, got off all his medications. I asked him how he did it. His answer surprised me. I stopped exercising in groups. He said, I stopped going to weight loss meetings. I stopped talking about my goals. Instead, I spent that time alone, actually doing the work. He explained that the social aspect had become a substitute for action. Only when he embraced solitary discipline did he see real results. This doesn't mean you should never learn from others or seek support. Of course not. But there's a difference between learning principles from others and depending on others for your motivation or follow-through. True discipline comes from within, and it's cultivated in solitude. You know, I often tell people that your life is like a construction project, and while it's fine to hire consultants and ask for input, you must be the general contractor. You must oversee the building of your life. No one can do that for you. And much of that oversight happens in quiet moments of reflection and planning. Let me tell you about a fascinating study I read. Researchers found that regular periods of solitude actually strengthen your immune system. They lower your blood pressure. They reduce stress hormones in your body. Isn't that amazing? The simple act of being comfortably alone improves your physical health, not just your mental clarity. And there's something else I've noticed over the years. People who master solitude tend to age differently. They maintain their intellectual sharpness longer. They stay curious. They adapt better to life's changes. Why? because they've built the habit of self-renewal through solitude. They don't wait for circumstances to force them to reinvent themselves. They're constantly evolving through their inner work. I had a mentor once who told me, Jim, the most dangerous person in your life is the one who can't stand their own company. Think about that. When someone is running from themselves, they often make decisions from a place of escape rather than purpose. Their choices are reactions, not creations. But when you build a friendship with yourself, your decisions come from a completely different place, a place of self-knowledge and inner security. Now, let me give you some practical steps to harness the power of being alone. First, start small if you're not used to solitude. Even 15 minutes a day of complete aloneness, no phone, no TV, no distractions, can be transformative. Just sit with your thoughts. Write in a journal. Look out the window. Let your mind wander. Second, schedule your solitude. Put it on your calendar like any important appointment. Protect that time. Don't let other commitments crowd it out. Remember, if you don't prioritize your alone time, no one else will. Third, use different forms of solitude for different purposes. A walk in nature might be best for creative thinking. A quiet desk might be better for focused problem solving. Experiment and see what works for you. Fourth, develop rituals that signal to your brain that this is special time. Maybe it's a certain chair you sit in, a candle you light, a cup of tea you prepare. These small rituals help transition your mind from social mode to solitary mode. Fifth, be patient with yourself. If you spent years avoiding solitude, it might feel uncomfortable at first. That's normal. Stay with the discomfort. It will pass. And on the other side is tremendous growth. Sixth, use solitude strategically before important events or decisions. Take time alone to prepare for big meetings, difficult conversations, or major life choices. You'll enter those situations with greater clarity and confidence. Finally, notice the benefits. Pay attention to the ideas that come during your alone time, the solutions that emerge, the peace you begin to feel. Acknowledging these benefits will motivate you to continue the practice. Now let me share something that may surprise you. Some of the most connected, most loved, most influential people I've ever met are also those most comfortable with solitude. That's not a contradiction. It's a revelation about human nature. When you learn to fill your own cup, you have so much more to offer others. When you're not desperately seeking approval, you become truly approachable. When you're complete in yourself, you form connections based on choice, not need. I remember a young entrepreneur who came to me, frustrated about her business partnerships. Every relationship ends badly, she told me. I give everything, then they take advantage. When I asked about her personal habits, she admitted she never spent time alone. She was always with someone, a friend, a colleague, a date, a family member. Her calendar was packed from morning until night. Try this, I suggested. For the next month, spend 2 hours every morning completely alone, no phone, no email, just you with your thoughts in a journal. She looked at me like I'd suggested she climb Mount Everest, but she agreed to try. 3 months later, she returned completely transformed. Not only had her business relationships improved, but she'd also renegotiated terms that were far more favorable. What changed? I asked. Her answer was profound. I'm no longer afraid of walking away. Being alone with myself showed me that I'm enough on my own. Now I partner with people because I want to, not because I need to. That shift in psychology changed everything for her. This points to something fundamental about human relationships. Paradoxically, your ability to connect meaningfully with others depends largely on your ability to be alone with yourself. Most relationship problems stem from using others to fill a void that can only be filled from within. The neediness, the jealousy, the control issues, the codependence, these all diminish when you develop a strong inner life. Someone once asked me, Jim, how do I find the right partner? I said, become the right partner. And that starts with being the right partner to yourself. They looked confused, so I explained. If you can't spend quality time with yourself, why would someone else want to? If you don't enjoy your own company, How can you expect others to? The world is full of people running from themselves, using relationships as escape hatches from their own minds. But the strongest relationships are formed between two people who are already whole on their own. Their connection isn't about filling emptiness, but about sharing fullness. That kind of relationship has power, has resilience, has joy that dependent relationships never will. I've noticed something else about people who master solitude. They listen differently. When you're comfortable with silence in your own life, you don't rush to fill the silence in conversation. You don't immediately jump in with your opinion or experience. You create space for others to express themselves fully. This makes you not just a better friend or partner, but a better leader, a better parent, a better colleague. A CEO once told me his most valuable leadership skill was his comfort with silence. In negotiations, he said, the person who needs to fill the quiet usually gives away the most. In meetings, he would ask a question, then sit back, perfectly at ease with the uncomfortable pause that followed. Others would rush to speak, often revealing information they hadn't intended to share. His solitude practice had given him this powerful edge. You know, there's something special about the hour before everyone else wakes up. I've had a morning ritual for decades. Rising before dawn, sitting with a cup of coffee, watching the world slowly come alive. Those quiet moments set the tone for everything that follows. I'm not reacting to other people's priorities. I'm setting my own course. I encourage everyone I mentor to claim this time. Whether it's early morning, late night, or a midday break, find those pockets of solitude that allow you to breathe, to think, to simply be. Guard those moments fiercely. They're the wellspring of your personal power. Now, some people tell me, Jim, I'd love to spend more time alone, but my life is too busy. I have kids, a demanding job, aging parents to care for. I understand those constraints are real, but even in the busiest life, small moments of solitude can be found and created. 5 minutes of silence in your car before entering your workplace. A brief walk alone during lunch. Even a few moments of quiet reflection before sleep. These small practices compound over time, building your capacity for deeper solitude when circumstances allow. Let me tell you about a single mother I worked with. 4 children, 2 jobs, barely keeping her head above water. Time alone. That's a luxury I can't afford, she told me. But she agreed to experiment with tiny pockets of solitude. 3 minutes in the bathroom with the door locked, just breathing deeply. 10 minutes in the parking lot before picking up her kids. A half hour once a week when she traded childcare with a neighbor. These small moments became her sanctuary. Those few minutes alone saved my sanity, she told me later. They reminded me that underneath all my roles, mother, employee, daughter, friend, they're still me. And reconnecting with that core self gave me strength I didn't know I had. That's what solitude offers, a chance to distinguish between your roles and your essence, between what you do and who you are, between the noise of expectations and the truth of your own wisdom. I've often observed that what most people call finding themselves actually happens during periods of purposeful solitude. You don't find yourself in exotic locations or in someone else's approval. You find yourself in those quiet moments when there's nothing to distract you from yourself. Consider how many people travel the world looking for enlightenment, but never take the most important journey, the one inward. They'll spend thousands of dollars on retreats, but won't spend 30 minutes in quiet reflection at home. They'll seek gurus and guides, but won't listen to their own inner wisdom. The answers you seek are rarely found in someone else's words. They're found in the silence between your own thoughts. Let me address something else about solitudes, the discomfort that comes with it initially. That discomfort isn't a sign something's wrong. It's a sign something's working. It's your mind detoxifying from constant stimulation. It's your true self emerging from beneath layers of social conditioning. When you first practice solitude, uncomfortable thoughts and feelings will arise, fears you've been avoiding, questions you've been postponing, truths you've been denying. Don't run from these. They're not your enemies. They're guides pointing toward growth opportunities, toward areas that need your attention. I once worked with a successful businessman who avoided being alone at all costs. His calendar was packed. His phone never stopped ringing. When I suggested he spend some time in solitude, he actually became angry. "I don't have time for navel-gazing," he said dismissively. But his business was suffering from poor decisions, and his health was deteriorating from stress. Finally, during a crisis, he found himself alone for an entire weekend. No choice in the matter. At first, he was miserable, but by the second day, something shifted. I realized why I'd been avoiding being alone. He told me later, I didn't like who I'd become. My values and my actions had drifted so far apart. That weekend changed everything. He restructured his business, rebuilt strained relationships, and recommitted to principles he'd long neglected. That's the transformative potential of solitude. It's a mirror that doesn't lie, a compass that points true north, a reset button for a life that's veered off course. This is particularly important during times of transition or decision. Society pushes us to move quickly, to keep up, to decide now. But the most important choices deserve the respect of solitude. Career changes, relationship commitments, major investments, these benefit enormously from quiet reflection. I often suggest people take a decision retreat before any major life choice. Even if it's just a day or half a day, completely alone with your thoughts about this one decision. No input from others, no research, no pros and cons lists. Just you sitting with the question, what I really want. What feels right in my gut, not just in my head. It's remarkable how often clarity comes during these periods. Options that seemed confusing suddenly arrange themselves in order. Doubts either solidify into valid concerns or dissolve completely. Your inner knowing, what some call intuition, finally has the quiet space to be heard. This practice has saved many people from choices they would have regretted. It's also given many the courage to make bold moves they'd been hesitating on. Either way, decisions made from this centered place tend to have staying power. They don't leave you second-guessing or looking over your shoulder at the road not taken. As we move toward a conclusion, let me share one last insight about the power of being alone. In solitude, you build a resource that serves you in every area of life: self-trust. When you regularly spend time alone with your thoughts, you develop confidence in your own perceptions, your own judgment, your own values. This self-trust becomes an unshakable foundation for everything else. Most people live with a constant, low-grade anxiety because they don't trust themselves. They need constant validation, constant reassurance. But the person who has befriended themselves in solitude walks differently through the world. There's a quiet confidence that no external validation can provide and no criticism can take away. This may be the greatest power of all, to know your own mind, to trust your own heart, to follow your own compass. In a world that profits from your self-doubt, developing self-trust is nothing short of revolutionary. My challenge to you is simple, but profound: make friends with solitude. Start where you are. 5 minutes if that's all you can manage. Build gradually. Notice what emerges. Stay with the discomfort until it transforms into comfort, then into power. Remember, the quality of your life ultimately depends on the quality of your relationship with yourself. And that relationship, like any other, needs time, attention, and most of all, presence. Give yourself the gift of your own undivided attention. It may be the most important investment you ever make. Yes, I want to leave you with this thought. The crowd has never produced greatness. Every meaningful contribution to humanity has come from individuals who were willing to step away, to think differently, to spend time developing their unique gifts in solitude. So don't fear being alone. Welcome it, cultivate it, master it. In that quiet space, you'll find a power that can change everything. Your decisions, your creativity, your peace of mind, your success. Being alone isn't something to avoid. It's something to embrace. Because in truth, being alone isn't a weakness. Being alone is a power. Thank you.